Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, Kenna.
Okay, Kenna, today I would like to ask you, what is the most dystopian real thing you have ever seen on television?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
I know, it's a big question. There's so many things, right?
Like, futuristic thing?
Anything where you watch this and you're like, this is real and this is happening, but it is horrifying and I cannot look away.
On TV or like also in movies?
Oh, it could be either. Let's do all media.
Okay, there is this movie called Gamer
that
is set in the near future. Okay, it's directed by the same people who did Crank and Crank 2 High Voltage.
Yes.
So just think super like early 2000 misogynistic action movie.
I will go on record as saying Crank and Crank 2 are two of my favorite movies.
They are sick.
Yes.
They are. It's definitely like that vein where the like early 2000s just figured out like filters.
Yes, there's a lot of filters happening.
So basically this movie is like, let's say that The Sims or Call of Duty were real and you could use real people instead of avatars in the real world and control them like they are characters in a video game.
Yes. Okay. So I saw a movie similar to this, but it's newer, and it's that there's like some evil black market video game people who will find innocent civilians and like hack into their brains or something, and then they'll control them in a televised like video game style fight to the death. Yeah, and they'll have like weapons forced on their hands, and then they have to fight each other, and there's this girl who's like the champion, but she's just like all jacked up on cocaine the whole time.
Yeah, so basically in this movie, people compete with like in this Call of Duty style game, but the characters they use are death row inmates. So
yes. This is like your chance to get out of prison.
Yes. And then on the flip side, regular people can compete in like a sim style game where they are basically a human sim and they clock in like I'm being a sim for the day, someone else is controlling my body. It seemed very gig work to me.
Yes.
Where it's just like in the future you could just have someone put a chip in your mind where you be a sim all day.
Yeah, it also sounds very reality competition-based television to me.
Yeah, and I was just like, whoa.
Like
this seems like it's not too far in the distant future. I don't know if that's what you're thinking.
No, it's weirdly more spot on than I thought it would be for our episode today. Because the thing about the prisoners competing in like deathmatch style things for the chance to get out of prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that kind of reminds me, not to that extreme, obviously, but the most fucked up dystopian real thing I saw on television is that one time I was watching like a cooking competition show, and there was a contestant who was very, very shy and nervous and super uncomfortable being there and being on camera. Looked like they were about to cry the whole time. Really, really nervous. Didn't want to be there. And they were competing for a chance to win money to send his autistic child to a special school that would better cater to his medical needs.
Oh, this is like, okay, you know those like helping Honda dealers where
Yes.
they're just like, this like single mom, like her car broke down and now she has to, walk 3 hours to her job every day, and the Honda dealership is going to give her a car, and it makes me so sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. Also, that guy on that show lost.
Oh.
And he got nothing, obviously.
Also, there was a Chick-fil-A commercial where like one of the people who worked at Chick-fil-A, they were raffling off a car for the franchise because they had done so good. So they're going to raffle off this car, and one of the people who worked there won the car, but their coworker was walking like 2 hours a day to work. So they gave the car to their coworker, and they made a commercial about it.
And then it's supposed to be heartwarming to us.
It's supposed to be heartwarming, like, oh, Chick-fil-A, like, cares about employees. And I was like, I'm, like, now on the verge of tears thinking about it. I'm like, you can't afford a new car if you work at Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, like, Chick-fil-A doesn't pay its workers enough to have transportation.
And I do think that Chick-fil-A probably actually pays their workers more than, like, a lot of other franchises. I don't know this. This is me guessing based on
All I know about
feeling.
Chick-fil-A is they're homophobic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's forbidden homophobic
But they're
chicken.
just like, don't think about it. Like, sometimes our workers can get a car if they're lucky.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, shouldn't they just be able to afford transportation to work? Or just like, shouldn't there be like really easy public like I kind of start spiraling. But
No,
the
me
Chick-fil-A
too.
commercial got me.
Yes, and then like that's similar to when you'll see people on Twitter or like news stations try to be like, heartwarming, this child has a lemonade stand to help pay for its grandmother's dialysis. And you're like, that's not heartwarming. That's dystopian and fucked up.
Or like, this robotics team made a wheelchair for this kid. And you're just like, the kid can't, like, why doesn't this kid have a wheelchair?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so like the thing I saw on the cooking show, that wasn't even the only time I'd seen something like that. Like, I just feel like if you watch any sort of like competition TV show long enough, you'll see contestants in really bad situations and you're like, holy shit, like you should not have to be on this television show competing with someone else for the chance to get your needs met. Like, one time I saw somebody competing to win money to be able to afford their child's medical bills. Their child like had cancer and they were trying to afford medical treatment. Ugh. Another, I saw somebody who was competing to try to earn enough money to fly to where their dying mother lived. Like they lived in a rural area and they came to a city because it was the only place they could work. And then they're like, now I'm trapped in the city and I don't make that much money at my job and I just need to be able to fly back to see my, my mother. I think it was actually her grandmother maybe, like on her deathbed. And she lost, and similar to what you were talking about in the Chick-fil-A commercial, somebody else won, and he felt so bad he just gave her the prize money to be like, go see your dying family member. Like, this is fucked up. But yeah, so all of these things, like, it's something I've always thought about when you see all these stories about how gnarly they are, but especially the TV show thing. And then one of our listeners, Stella Fox Smith, actually recommended this as an episode topic on our Patreon. And I thought, you know what, this is something that interests me too. So we've got to do an episode on it. And it is reality competition shows.
Wow. Okay. It's funny that you're asking me because I tend to hate reality TV. And you know this about me.
Yes.
Although this year is the year when I finally started watching kind of, very lightly, 2 reality TV shows.
Which were they?
Jersey Shore and RuPaul's Drag Race.
Right. Yeah. Jersey Shore is different because I don't think they are competing for anything.
No. But RuPaul, yes.
Yes, they are. They're competing to be the fracking lord's favorite minion. Right?
I think it's, and $100,000.
Oh, and $100,000.
But like,
that's pretty good, yeah.
In certain competitions, they'll win. In the lesser competitions, they'll get like $5,000.
Oh, that's okay. At least there's like consistent prize money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, well, first off, I want to thank Stella Fox Smith, right? And I also want to point out that if anyone else wants to suggest episode topics to us, you can do it on our Patreon. It's only $2 a month, and we're saving up that money to try to get a proper microphone and recording set up for our future, since right now we just record on my phone. So your subscriptions are greatly appreciated there, but also we don't mind our show being like a scrappy DIY operation if you don't. So I just wanted to get that out of the way for anybody interested in our Patreon.
We are DIY.
Yes, we are DIY. Okay, so yeah, back to what we were talking about, kind of, like, what do you think about those reality competition shows? Like, RuPaul's Drag Race is actually one of them. That's an example. What are the kind of, like, your thoughts about this?
I've been watching it with someone who knows a lot about, like, the series, and they're like, oh, they used to be, like, really cutthroat and blah, blah, blah. But, like, I've been watching this season, and I'm like, everyone's really friendly to each other. Why would people be mean? Like, you're all trying to, like, just get exposure and, like, help each other out. And, like, this later season seems like, yeah, like, everyone, like, we're friends. But in the earlier seasons, you're like, oh, my God.
Yeah, they were really shady to each other.
Also, I had an old roommate who would religiously watch, is it MasterChef? The one with Gordon Ramsay?
It might be. He has many.
But there was one with children.
Oh, MasterChef Junior.
They're just screaming at the kids. And I'm like, I can't handle this.
He's actually usually really nice to children.
Okay, but...
and really mean to adults.
Maybe that just in my head, he was screaming at the children because I just saw him screaming at adults.
Yes.
And I was just like, I cannot handle this. And it stresses me out so hard. Like those competition shows. Also, I watched just one episode of this fucked up reality competition show from the early 2000s, like very like 9/11 era, called The Swan.
Oh, we talk about that later.
This is fucked. That shit was fucked. If you're going to talk about it later, I'm going to let you handle it. But it's like the most like it is the worst competition. It's so unhinged.
Yes. Well, I love this because this is good foreshadowing. You're tantalizing the listeners.
Yeah.
They've got to stay tuned to hear more.
If you were our age in the early 2000s, this was just everywhere.
Yeah, you saw some shit. We saw some shit.
You saw some reality shows where you're like, wait, what? Like Kid Nation.
Kid Nation is our favorite. You're in my favorite. Nobody else I've ever met even knows this show exists. It is phenomenal. Did they compete for a cash prize?
I don't know what they competed. I think they just competed to get stuff to help them.
Yeah. So do you want to explain the setup of Kid Nation?
I think that you should explain the setup of Kid Nation.
Okay, so first of all, this is an unhinged show. I love this show. So this show, literally, they found it was like an abandoned ghost town, right?
Yeah.
And then they just dumped a bunch of children in it. And we're talking children, like 10 to 13, maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
8 to 13.
I think it was like 8 to 13.
Yeah. So they're little kids. And then they just have to survive. And that's the whole show. It's very Lord of the Flies.
And it's very 100 kids, I think.
Yeah, it's so many kids. And they have to build their own society. So they end up trying to grow food and build shelters, and they get into all these disagreements, and they have to work it out amongst themselves. And you were the one, Kenna, who told me that their parents had to sign these really gnarly releases where the network was like, your kid might die.
Yeah, these releases would not, they were just we have the right to kill your children and you will not sue us. They were it was the most broad, you will not sue us ever. And apparently I think there is some lore that possibly, there are some kids who wanted to rise up against, because there's, a merchant class and, a working class.
Oh, wow.
They set this up for Marxism.
Yeah.
And there was, some sort of, episode about that they, never aired.
Labor exploitation uprising episode. Yeah, I remember I watched this show because I was a really early adopter of Hulu, way back when Hulu was free and there were no ads. They were just it was brand new, try it out, watch TV on your computer. And that was the first show I watched on Hulu.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so these reality competition shows, sometimes it's quiz shows, trivia shows, game shows. But then also sometimes it's skill-based things, like RuPaul's Drag Race, right? That's a skill. Mm-hmm. And then even Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, those kind of involve skill too. But then there's also stuff like Project Runway for fashion, Chopped for cooking, or Survivor for whatever the fuck that, just kind of surviving in a fake way.
And The Bachelor, which I hear about at work, but I don't know about. All I know is about the man who brought a suitcase of meat with him.
Oh, I don't know about that man. What?
Apparently there is a season where a man brings a suitcase of bologna with him.
Wow. I want to watch that season.
Because he had to have his protein.
Got it. You do. You need that on The Bachelor. You need your bologna on The Bachelor. I think that's true. But all of these weird shows, right? They have this really rich history in American and British culture. So television was invented in 1927, and as early as the 1930s, competition and game shows were appearing on TV. And for the sake of ease in this episode, I think I'm just going to call them contest shows. I know it's not a proper term, but I feel it best encompasses both game shows, quiz shows, and competition shows. And a lot of these early contest shows were adapted from popular radio shows. So there was this one British show called Spelling Bee, which was a radio show and a TV show, and it was literally just a spelling bee in which you win shit. They were not very creative in the early stages. That was no Kid Nation. But it was a hit. People liked it. And more shows followed suit. So there was this thing called Dr. IQ, and Dr. IQ had been a radio TV show in the 1930s, and by the 1950s, it too had moved over to television. And this one was a quiz game show, but it was one of the first to involve audience participation. So in its radio version, it was a traveling road show that popped up at concert halls and theaters around the country with microphones positioned throughout the audience. And there was this quiz master named Dr. IQ. And there were assistants who would search for audience members who wanted to play. And the participants would attempt to answer fast-paced questions. And if they did a good enough job, Dr. IQ would come bring them silver dollars. Yeah, always silver dollars. The payout was always $1 silver dollar, $2 silver dollars, and a box of Cracker Jacks. Literally.
Old-timey.
And the assistants would call out I have a gentleman in the balcony, doctor. And this kind of became like a famous phrase from the show. That's how popular it was. And one lucky listener at home every week could also play along via telephone. So the radio version started in 1939 and aired until 1950. And there was even a kids version of it called Dr. IQ Jr. for a while, like Master Chef Jr.
Whoa.
It's in our roots. And the television setup that followed in the 1950s was really similar, just in a studio with like audience participants. There was also this thing called Information Please, a radio show from 1938 that rewarded listeners for submitting questions that an expert panel of like really smart people could not answer. So I thought that was pretty fun. There was also Truth or Consequences, which is basically just truth or dare. And audience members were told to answer usually like a trivia-based question to tell the truth or perform an embarrassing consequence, perform a stunt if they could not. And this show had a run on the radio in the 1940s, and it came to television in the 1950s. Then there was the $64,000 question. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right? Me too. Well, that came from this 1941 radio quiz show called Take It or Leave It, where contestants could choose to bet up to $64,000 on answering trivia questions, which adjusted for inflation would be nearly $1 million today.
Oh, whoa. So it was like kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but you're betting.
Yeah. And soon people began to have questions about whether or not these types of contest shows were gambling. So the FCC tried to make the whole genre illegal, and people really didn't know what to think of it. So the shows tended to keep the stakes really low to not push it too much with the regulators, with the exception obviously of the $64,000 question. However, in 1954, the Supreme Court ruled in FCC versus American Broadcasting Co. that giveaways were not gambling, and this paved the way for higher stakes shows to take root. In fact, this $64,000 question actually became its own TV show shortly after this, based on that older radio show, and it was a huge hit. People kind of just like seeing average people on television, right? That was novel. So in 1955, audiences became enthralled with one of those average people, just a contestant on a show called Joyce Brothers. So she was a contestant on the $64,000 question who actually won the big prize. And she later went on to win another contest show that was about boxing. And she became so popular that she got her own TV show out of it and became one of the most influential pop psychologists of the time, because her day job before competing had been a psychologist.
Okay, I was like, that sounds really familiar. I feel like she was on a bunch of talk shows.
Yeah, she got really, really famous from this. And there was another guy who got really famous as a contestant on these shows around this time too. So there was this game called 21, which pitted two players against each other, answering trivia, and they were in isolation booths with headphones. And there was this guy, Charles Van Doren, who was a college professor, and he challenged the reigning champion of 21 in a weeks-long run of shows that ended in multiple ties until he finally beat him. And people loved this guy. One writer, Maxine Fabe, said of him, "He is just too likable, too special, too important an icon to the American dream of success to fade from view." So he ended up being a guest on lots of other TV shows and kind of became a celebrity in his own right. But I like that woman, Maxine Fabe, or Fabe, said that he was an icon to the American dream of success, because I think that really sets up what these quiz shows and game shows were in people's minds, right? It was kind of like the American dream. Anyone can make it big here. So there were tons of these early game shows, both on radio and television. And pretty early on, they were all marked with scandal. Do you know what kind of scandals?
Wasn't there one? Because I feel like there was a famous cheating incident.
There was. They were all rigged. There was a movie made about it, quiz show.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. So both of these shows, the $64,000 question and 21, were rigged. So when producers got tired of Joyce Brothers, the pop psychologist, on the $64,000 question, for example, they tried to rig future episodes against her by coming up with questions they thought were out of her wheelhouse that there'd be no way she could possibly answer correctly. And she pissed them off because she would always get them right. Yeah. In 21, producers had always been rigging the shows, from really, really early on, because a sponsor in one of the very first iterations of the show was like, "Hey, this is just too boring. I'm not going to pay for ad space." So the producer coached the long-running champ to be sort of a villain, making Charles Van Doren's win against him seem even more amazing and likable to audiences. He even told both of them what clothes to wear. So the villain, who had won for a really long time before Charles Van Doren like stood up to him, his name was Herb Stempel, and he said of his experience on the show, "I used to go down to Enright's office every Wednesday afternoon before the show. Dan Enright would pull out cards with the questions and answers that would be used that evening. I ran through them, and he would instruct me when to pause, when to mop my brow. Everything was very carefully choreographed." His losing question was actually about his favorite movie, Marty, and he pretended not to know anything about it to like take a fall for the show. Enright had promised him a permanent high salary behind the scenes job at the network if he threw the show, but that job never materialized. So Stempel got mad and he went to the press to tell them all about how rigged the show was. But the story wasn't printed because nobody would corroborate it. However, it did set in motion more scrutiny on what these contest shows were up to. Then, in 1958, a contestant from a CBS show called Dodo, D-O-T-T-O, told the Manhattan District Attorney that he found evidence the show had provided winners with the answers to questions in advance of filming, which provided the legitimacy needed for Stempel's story to finally make it to print too. Then Manhattan convened a grand jury, which heard over 150 witnesses, and soon Congress got involved in the investigations. They brought to testify 21 contestant James Snodgrass, which is just like a great last name. I just love that. And he brought with him registered letters he had mailed himself at the time of the show and never opened. Have you heard of this? It's like the poor man's copyright.
No.
We were told to do this in fashion school. I don't know how relevant it is, but like if you mail yourself your intellectual property and don't open it, it'll be like date stamped. So you can always say like, I came up with this first, and then you can open it if you need in court. Well, he did this. And what he mailed himself were questions and answers that he had been given in advance of filming, and it was dated before the episode's filmed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Van Doren admitted the whole thing then, stepped down, and 17 other contestants pled guilty to lying under oath to the grand jury in 1959. So in 1960, Congress amended the Communications Act of 1934 to make it illegal to rig or fix contest shows. And following this ruling, a lot of shows just kind of folded because the public couldn't trust them, you know? But there was one, The Price is Right, which remains strong. So The Price is Right started in 1956. And do you know what happened on that show? Do you remember?
No, I don't know. I think you guess prices?
Yeah, I had never seen it before, but basically you're right. So the idea is that it's almost like you're bidding and guessing at the same time. You want to like bid on a prize without going over its actual retail price. And whoever gets closest to the price without going over, like, gets it. Yeah. So it's pretty low stakes because you just get the thing. And there's no cheating or rigging kind of conspiracies that had happened or like bad press about it. So the show was able to carry on with some credibility. It was revamped in 1972, and it's still on the air today, making it one of the longest running shows on network television.
Whoa.
Yeah, so then throughout the 60s and 70s, there was like a renaissance in contest shows, and we started to see things like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune come out, as well as Hollywood Squares and Password and Match Game and Family Feud. Did you ever watch any of those?
No, I think I only know about Hollywood Squares because Saturday Night Live would always parody it.
Yes, they would. I forgot about that. Well, I loved Hollywood Squares. So this show is like basically just a bunch of like B and C-list celebrities getting drunk on the air and telling jokes while regular people used them to play tic-tac-toe. So like you would ask a question and the celebrity would answer it, and then you would have to decide if the celebrity was lying or not. And then you would make that call, and if you got the call correct, you got to like claim their square as your square. And the squares were these cubes stacked on top of each other in a 3x3 grid where the celebrities literally like sat inside of them. They were like human-sized squares. And then you would try to strategically decide who to ask what to get 3 in a row to get like tic-tac-toe. It was really a very strange show.
Yeah.
And I just remember the celebrities were always annihilated. They were just so drunk the whole time. And it was like, it seemed like a good time, you know? So obviously the most popular shows from this era, though, were Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, right? Both of which came about from Merv Griffin, who was a talk show host at the time. And he even wrote the Jeopardy theme song. Do you remember the song?
Is it do 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 do?
Yeah, that's it.
I apologize.
No, you shouldn't. You nailed it. You crushed it. Merv Griffin wrote that.
It's like my brain is infected now with the song.
I know. So obviously Jeopardy was similar to trivia shows of the past, but the spin was that contestants were given answers and had to figure out the questions. Like, what is, I don't know, glue? I don't know why I thought of glue as an example. What is glue? We'll never know. And Alex Trebek became the host in 1984 and stayed on until 2020 when he passed away. And obviously everybody loved Alex Trebek in that role, and he became like a media legend. And then there was Wheel of Fortune, which was basically Hangman, right? You remember playing Hangman as a kid?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same. You try to guess the letters in the phrase, and when you have enough letters filled in, you try to solve the puzzle. And this show started in 1975, but it wasn't until 1981 when Pat Sajak took over and 1982 when Vanna White joined that the show really became like what we think of it as today. And Vanna White obviously knew the answer to every puzzle beforehand, so she could just go spin the letters around to reveal when a contestant was right about guessing a letter. And I remember being a kid and thinking Vanna White had like the best job on the planet. I always thought about this. I was like, okay, she's cool. So she wears amazing dresses and she just walks and spins letters around. Like,
and now I think she just taps them.
Right. Yeah, they updated the system, so then she just had to tap it and it would reveal. I mean, I always wanted that job, though. I thought she was so glamorous, and I loved, like, word games, and I was like, this is the intersection of all my interests. But these shows were so popular that they actually took the idea of the contest show, like, out of daytime television, where it kind of been before, like, trashy daytime TV, you know, for stay-at-home people, and into prime time, 7 to 8 p.m., where they competed with, like, popular sitcoms and dramas. So, basically, Merv Griffin made, like, talk shows, game shows, contest shows worthy in, like, the eyes of TV executives. And that brings us to the 80s, which is when we were born. So do you remember any of your family watching any of these types of contest shows when you were growing up?
I mean, my grandma still Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, okay, yeah. My grandma loved Wheel of Fortune, too.
And Jeopardy.
Yeah, I remember distinctly watching what I called the Whammy Show, but it's actually called Press Your Luck. Have you heard of this one?
No.
Okay, so I watched this with my babysitter, Sherry, and this is a really early memory. Like, I thought I must have been 2 or 3 years old watching the show, but I looked up the show, and it turns out it only aired from 1983 to 1986, and I was born in 1986. So there's a good chance I literally have, like, a flash memory of watching the show as an actual baby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I do have some random baby memories that are just, like, a flash. Like, one was me in a car seat in Sherry's old Cadillac looking up out of the window, and I'm in the Tower District in Fresno, and I just saw the Tower Theater in the window, and Sherry was smoking in the car, because that's where I come from. And I just have this, like, flash of a memory, and I have just a flash of a memory of the Whammy Show, so it wouldn't be the weirdest thing ever, but also, like, maybe she was watching, like, syndicated reruns or something when I was 2 or 3, who knows. Whatever. It's a core memory, though, from my childhood. And I remember it because there was a cartoon creature in it that kind of looked like a gremlin or a Tasmanian devil.
Huh.
Very child-looking. And I also remember my dad, who was, like, smart, but just, like, a punk dude. And I don't even know if he graduated from high school. And he definitely also had ADHD. And I remember him answering the Jeopardy questions along with the contestants. And I just remember being like, my dad is so smart. And then I would try to always solve the Wheel of Fortune myself. And I watched it with my grandma. But then as we got older, I remember these 2 contest shows that, like, took the nation by storm. And one of them you already mentioned, which is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Oh, yeah, and I bet I know the other one.
What is it?
Oh, gosh. Oh, now I can't remember the name, but the lady was like, you are not the winner.
No, it's You Are the Weakest Link.
The weakest link! Oh, my God. You are the weakest link.
Yes, exactly. The Weakest Link was huge.
So huge.
And that was, like, a group of people playing together. And at the end of every round, they voted off. It was supposed to be the person who they thought was worst at the game, but sometimes they would strategically try to vote off smart people so they would have a better chance of winning. And the host would reveal who was voted off by saying, like, yeah, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. In this, like, really particular voice. And then there was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where the questions would get, like, start out easy and then get progressively harder with every round. And the host would always be like, is that your final answer? And it made it sound very serious. And then you'd have all these, like, assist options throughout the game, like, I'd like to phone a friend. And then you could, like, call a friend at home and be like, I'm stuck on this question, help me. And then also hilarious is that the first questions on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire were always, like, super, super easy. But then sometimes those would somehow stump people. And you'd just be watching, like, come on, while somebody failed to answer the first easy throwaway question. But if you made it to the end through the questions as they got progressively more difficult, you won $1 million.
Yes, I remember this.
Yes. And I was trying to remember the questions that they asked people in the beginning, the super easy ones, because I remember seeing memes of them like asking like a school teacher, like, which blah blah song, blah 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 blah, but it'd be like the options were like Corn, Limp Bizkit, and then the teacher would just look really confused, you know? So I looked up some, and here are some of the first questions that they would ask. So one was, a magnet would most likely attract which of the following? And they were all multiple choice. So you got 4 options, and you decided which one's right. Metal, plastic, wood, the wrong man. They got sassy with these. They did. Somebody had a sense of humor. Here's another one. In fancy hotels, it is traditional for what tantalizing treat to be left on your pillow? A pretzel, an apple, a mint, or a photo of Wolf Blitzer.
Ooh, Wolf Blitzer.
Here's another. If someone asks to see your ID, what might you show them? Your tongue, your teeth, your passport, or the door.
Show them the fucking door.
Get out of here. According to a common phrase, a person who takes a chance is going out on a what? A limb, a horse, a skateboard, or a nude beach. It got sassy.
I mean, maybe you could figure out some sort of limb situation on a nude beach, but that is, it hurts my brain.
I feel like if you're on a horse, a skateboard, or a nude beach, you might be taking a chance. So maybe all of them are the correct answer.
That is true.
And then the last one I found was, a common piece of advice goes, be there or be what? Bare, square, sore, or all alone as usual. So remember how I said I thought Vanna White had the perfect job?
Yes.
I think I take it back, because I think writing the first questions in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire would have been the perfect job.
You're like, I do first questions only.
Yes, only the first. Give me your first. So around this time too, a new type of contest show like emerged and became super, super popular. Do you remember Survivor?
Oh, yeah.
That was like a huge phenomenon. And it was different than traditional contest shows because it wasn't based on trivia or little games. It was way more intense. And I don't know if it was the first time we saw shows like this pop up, but it was definitely like the most popular one that emerged. So it actually started in 1997 and came from a Swedish television show called Expedition Robinson. The US version, though, like aired in May of 2000. And the format was you took 16 to 20 contestants, you trapped them together in a remote location, you divided them into 2 teams, and you expected them to survive by building shelter and finding food with like limited tools. And all of this was in the end to hopefully win a cash prize. And the teams also periodically competed with each other in physical challenges. So I only ever watched one episode of the show, but the episode I saw, they had to like run across the beach in bikinis to grab fake artifacts from the sand. And one contestant tried to like sabotage another by ripping off her bikini top, thinking she'd be like, oh no, my bosom, right? But the girl just like won half naked and shook her boobs around and was like, I don't give a fuck, I just won. And I was like, damn, this shit is wild for regular television. That's what's just happening.
Okay, the only part of a Survivor I saw is also where a woman took off her bikini top.
And what did she do?
She was like, I will take off my top right now if you give me an Oreo.
Oh, smart.
Or it was like her favorite food was like Oreo with peanut butter.
Yes.
And they talked to the producers. They're like, yes. And she was like, but they were like all standing on these like stick poles that were like jutting out of water.
What?
And I was just like, wow, that was a cool move. I would do that.
I liked that. I respect that move. So at the end of each episode, there was, you remember, the tribal council, and someone would be voted off.
I only know this from pop culture.
Yeah, me too. I didn't make it to the end of the running in the sand bikini episode. I watched maybe 15 minutes and was like, what the fuck? But at the end, they'd be like, you're voted off the island or whatever. And then finally, when just one contestant was left, the survivor, they got the grand prize, which was $1 million in the American version.
Yeah, didn't the first winner of Survivor go to prison for not paying taxes?
Tax evasion, yeah. So this show was so popular that it's actually like generally credited with making reality TV, as we think of it today, a thing. And to me, these kind of took contest shows in a new direction in the early 2000s and paved the way for a whole slew of new competition shows. The only problem is that some of these new shows were downright degrading, and they targeted people in dire straits who would do anything for the chance to transcend their economic situation. So as these shows rose to popularity in the early 2000s, remember Survivor started in the year 2000, it was set to a background of economic hardship in the U.S. The U.S. was coming to terms with the ever-growing income and wealth inequality put in place by the Reagan era of trickle-down economics, which was exacerbated by subprime and variable rate interest mortgages that predatory banks gave to low-income people, and eventually caused the 2007-2009 financial crash. Nationally, between 2000 and 2012, the percentage of people in poverty increased from like around 12% to basically 16%, while the number of people in poverty increased from 33 million to 48.8 million. So both the number and percentage of people in poverty increased in 44 states between 2000 and 2012. And the percentage of people in the United States with income below 50% of the poverty threshold grew from 5% in 2000 to 7% in 2012. So that's like people making less than half of poverty line.
Wow.
Yeah. And over this period, the percentage of people with income below 125% of the poverty threshold grew from 16.5% to 20.8%. And so that's people just earning just slightly above the poverty line. So basically, even before we hit the Great Recession, our economic situation in the U.S. was getting really, really dire, especially for low-wage workers. And from 1998 to 2008, worker productivity rose 18%. But from 2000 to 2007, the median real income for working-age middle-income families in the U.S., remember, this is up to the start of the Great Recession, before it actually hit, it had already dropped $2,000 per year for the average family.
Wow.
And the 2000 to 2007 business cycle was the first ever in which the nation's middle-class families had less real income at the end of it than when they started. So in short, the early 2000s were a period where the average working person in the U.S. was starting to have a lot less than their parents had at their age, and less than they thought they would have. People were financially getting more desperate, and this was way before the Great Recession. Set to this background of like widening income gaps and increasing poverty rates, we saw shows like Fear Factor emerge. And Fear Factor aired from 2001 to 2006 and featured contestants competing for a share of $50,000.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and the stunts performed were degrading and dehumanizing and all aired on public television for the world to see. People were forced to do things like be put in a coffin with 300,000 worms, milk a goat with their mouth, then spit the milk into a glass, then later drink the spit and goat milk combo cup, eat spiders like the African cave-dwelling spider, which has claws, be wrapped in an airtight sheet and put on a tray and locked inside of a morgue, sit in a bathtub full of leeches, which then had to be sucked off of their body by a teammate who would then have to also eat them.
Oh, so this is like Jackass without the fun.
Right, and you maybe don't get paid anything for doing this. The Jackass guys all got paid, and they came up with their own stunts, and they did this of their own volition. But also on Fear Factor, contestants had to eat rats that had been blended up in a blender.
No.
I know, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna barf.
Should I not read the last one?
Oh, okay, I'm ready now. Just
Okay.
please let it not be about mice or rats.
No more mice and rats. So they also had to chew up cow intestines to release a fluid from inside of them that then had to be drained into a cup and then drank, all while sitting in a tub surrounded by more intestines. And they also had to do things like dunk their heads into a huge tank filled with blood to bob for things.
I'm like literally gagging.
I know, it's the last one. I've got the last example. They also had to drink donkey urine and semen. And before you ask, yes, this was the show hosted by Joe Rogan.
I was like, yeah, this is Joe Rogan.
Yeah, and he earned $100,000 per episode that was filmed. But contestants who did not win took home nothing for their efforts.
Fuck that.
And it's hard to look at this correlation and not feel a bit sick, or in your case, a lot sick.
Yeah, this is how I felt after watching Jackass forever.
Yes. But these were people competing who were so desperate for money that they would do anything for the chance to earn like 1 year's salary, which was like the median salary in the US at the time, around $50,000. And then after this show like had been super, super popular, right? From 2007 to 2009, the Great Recession hit and made these circumstances even more dire. So Kenna, since we both lived through the Great Recession as adults, I think I was 21 when it started and you were 22. Can you kind of like explain what it was like for people who weren't there?
It just felt like everything was falling apart. Like different than the pandemic, everything is falling apart, but like kind of weirdly similar.
Yeah.
Like so many people lost their jobs, and like, or like couldn't find a job. Like I remember I was straight out of college, and I had like quit my job like right before the recession started. And then like I was like, oh fuck, and like it was so hard to find a job, so hard. I mean, it's still very hard to find a job, but it was just like everyone was broke. Like you just would hear stories of like just people being like, I had like a job as like a high powered job, and I had a house and a car, and then they had none of that and had to like move back in with their parents, and just like it was just because like I feel like when we were younger there was this idea of like, you're gonna grow up, you're gonna have a house, a car, like you're gonna do good. Like right before the recession hit was like, people were like, this is the best the economy has ever done. Like people are going to live in prosperity like forever. Like no one's going to be poor anymore. And then it was like, nope.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that happened is, so it started with the subprime and variable interest loans on houses, which meant that basically you could get a mortgage on a house and be like, great, this is great, I can afford it. And then the interest rate could change on you. And all of a sudden your payment could be like 50% more out of nowhere overnight. Yeah. So then a lot of people started losing their job or losing their houses. And then people who didn't lose their houses just started like really rolling back their spending so they could keep up with their mortgage payments. And that started to cause certain like sectors of the economy to just come to a grinding halt, because consumer spending is the backbone of the U.S. economy. So what you would do is you'd be in your industry and you'd be looking at the world and you'd see like one industry fall apart, like cars or something. And you'd be like, oh, fuck, are they coming for my industry next? And everybody like, I think it'll be fine. And I actually was on contract at Levi's at the time for a 6-month contract. And they had kept telling me at the end of the 6-month contract, we're bringing you on full time. You're going to be full time. And Levi's was a great job. So all throughout the recession, I kept being like, and I'll get the full time job like for good at the end, like right when my contract's over. And they kept being like, yeah. Well, when it eventually came for the fashion industry, Mervyn's went out of business. And Mervyn's was in the East Bay. I was in San Francisco. And you don't think of Mervyn's as being like a design powerhouse, but what ended up happening is you had these senior designers at Mervyn's, people with over a decade of experience, coming into San Francisco and basically begging for jobs that paid $10 an hour.
Yeah.
Which was the minimum wage there at the time. And I, as a recent college graduate, couldn't compete with that. And then slowly we saw that nobody wanted to spend money on clothes anymore. This is like around the era too that the Maxxinista came out, like where everybody was like shopping really skimpy. Nobody wanted to buy anything new clothing wise. And then Levi's went on a hiring freeze. So when my contract was up, the hiring freeze was still on. So I couldn't get hired on. Oof. And I ended up going back to my old boss, who was a photographer, and working for her part-time, and then going on partial unemployment. But every single person I knew was on unemployment. And that's the least I've ever worked in my life. I worked like 25 hours a week.
Yeah, I feel like everyone I knew at the time was like, if they weren't in school, they were fucking broke.
Yeah, we were all broke. And it was a really, really scary time because you didn't know what was going to happen. So by the end of the business cycle that the Great Recession hit in, nearly 1 in 5 unemployed workers had been out of a job for at least 6 months. And the U.S. unemployment rate on the whole was over 10%. So 1 in 10 people didn't have jobs. And if you were younger, like we were, it was mostly your friends because you were low level, entry level, and you didn't really have a chance to get your footing at a company.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely set me back. Like if you think of like traditional career wise, because it's just like, yeah, no one's going to hire you for like anything to get your career going because there are people who are way ahead of you who will take any job. Or, like, I remember going to apply for a job as an administrative assistant at a big well-known advertising firm in Portland. And it was a group interview of, like, 25 people. And There were people from, like, my age to, like, probably in their 50s, like who had been actual like administrative assistants for like 25 years, and we were in this group interview competing with each other. There were people who were like, I was teaching orphans to surf this summer. like people who had like gone to Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
And like who had 25 years of administrative experience competing against each other in this interview.
Yeah, that's what it was like, definitely. Like, I would go to job interviews for design, and they would tell me, like, oh, we just got somebody who has 10 years of experience, like, applying for this job. And I'm like, this job pays $10 an hour. Like, how are they doing that? I can't even afford to do that. And it was really, really gnarly. And people, remember, were on hold with unemployment for hours every day just trying to get through, because it was even less internet savvy than it is today, the EDD website. Or they were trying to, like, apply for jobs way beneath their qualifications just to get minimum wage. People were losing their homes. Some people, like, panicked when the stock market crashed, and they sold all of their investment, like their retirements, and which is what you're not supposed to do, but it's like a psychological thing. When you see it crashing, you're like, well, what if it goes lower and I have even less? I'm just going to sell. And that created, like, this market panic. And all of this was happening while Survivor and Fear Factor became two of the most popular television shows on air, where people competed in these dehumanizing conditions to try to win money they couldn't earn to keep their lives afloat. And at Fear Factor, it wasn't even a life-changing amount of money. Ironically enough, it was just enough money to help you survive in the real world. You could do something like pay off your student loans or some of your medical debt or put a down payment on a house, but people would do anything to get it. And following the recession, the acute impact of the economic downturn was alleviated. However, throughout the 2010s and even now into the 2020s, we see that the core issues of income inequality and wealth inequality persist, and these gaps between rich and poor in the U.S. actually grow larger every year. So the wealth gap between America's richest and poorest families more than doubled from 1989 to 2016.
I'm definitely not surprised.
Yeah, right? And in 2016, the IMF actually issued that formal warning to the U.S. over our growing rates of poverty and inequality. And the IMF is the International Monetary Fund. It's not like it's a progressive institution. Their goal is to, like, advance capitalism internationally. But even they said that in the U.S., about 1 in 7 people were living in poverty and that it needed to be tackled urgently. And they recommended raising the minimum wage and offering paid maternity leave to women to encourage them to work. And the IMF warned that high rates of poverty would throttle the U.S. economy by completely crashing consumer spending, which is, yes, thought to be the backbone of the economy. And of course, we did nothing about that, right? Nothing happened. But inequality in the U.S. is the highest of all of the G7 nations. And the G7 is an informal bloc of industrialized democracies like the United States, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom. And in the United States, you know, I use democracy loosely, right? Because people think we have more of like a republic than a democracy. But, you know, that's what they call themselves, democracy. And that group kind of meets annually to discuss issues like global economic governance. And there's this thing called the Gini coefficient, which measures inequality in a country on a scale of 0 to 1. And 0 would be like a society with perfect equality. And 1 would be a society with complete inequality. And nobody ranks 0 or 1, right? But that's the scale it's on. And the U.S.'s Gini coefficient is 0.484, which is the highest it's been in 50 years, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The average Gini coefficient worldwide is 0.382, so we are far above the global average. And our Gini coefficient places us right in between Peru and Bulgaria, alongside Haiti, the Ivory Coast, Malaysia, and Bolivia, which isn't to malign these countries. They aren't like horrible places to be associated with, but they also aren't nations with as much wealth as us, which means we have the resources and means to do better. China, for example, which is a comparably wealthy nation, has a Gini coefficient of 0.38, right around the global average. Chile's Gini coefficient is 0.44, and you may remember that from 2019 to 2021, Chile had widespread protests against this rampant inequality. The U.S. is actually worse than theirs, and we've just kind of been left to suffer in silence. So from 1948 to 2013, U.S. workers produced way more, but typical workers' pay lagged far behind. Wages for the top 1% of earners grew 38% since 1979, and wages for the bottom 90% grew just 15%. Middle wage workers' hourly wage went up 6% since 1979, but low wage workers, their wages were down 5%. And those very high wage people, they saw a 41% increase. Workers are less likely now to have healthcare provided by work, even if they are college graduates. And CEOs now make 351 times what the average worker pays. Makes, sorry, not pays. And in 1965, that figure was just 21 to 1, but now it's 351 to 1. And if the federal minimum wage had grown in line with worker productivity in the US, it would be $26 an hour instead of the $7.25 an hour it is today. Here in 2020, 37 million people lived in poverty, and that means the poverty rate for 2020 was 11.4%. And half of Americans now carry medical debt, a rate that has increased nearly 4% since 2020 alone. It's now the number one source of debt collections in the US. And student loan debt has also more than doubled since 2008, where just 8% of households had student loan debt in 1989. By 2019, this number had increased to 21%, or over 1 in 5. And more US households are renting today rather than owning than at any point over the last 50 years. Since 2006 alone, the share of the population renting has increased 5 percentage points. And this all happened around us in real time, right? While reality shows also became increasingly popular, featuring competition-based structures for cash prizes. And I think that correlation is something that can't be ignored. So in October of 2020, on an episode of the ABC game show Press Your Luck, one school teacher won 2 new smart boards for his classroom. And in September of that same year, one contestant on I Can See Your Voice, which is just a show with lip syncing, they won a $100,000 prize, and they said that they would use that to pay for school tuition. And now we exist in this era where competing on television in a series of contests that can range from entertaining and fun to downright humiliating is normal. And the cash prizes are being used to fund things like school supplies and tuition. These shows make the contestants into protagonists, and they need to do that in order to compete with the heroes of popular dramas airing at the same time as them. These game shows work one of two ways. It's either a small amount of money that isn't particularly life-changing, say $25,000, which can be won to a background of laughs, so you can keep it kind of light, or a large life-altering amount of money, like $100,000, $1 million, which will feature a tearful journey of a hero trying to climb their way out of poverty and into a better life. It's intentionally a dystopian late capitalist nightmare because that's what makes for good TV, and we want to root for somebody. And that rooting has led to a slew of dystopian television shows that exploit the lower and working class's desire for economic stability, turning it into television, and often television that we laugh at. This trend started with Strike It Rich in the 1940s and 50s, a show where contestants in dire need of things like medical treatment and money to save them from their homes being foreclosed on were able to compete to earn money. And it was controversial at the time for how exploitative it was then, but now this would be totally normal. These trends have continued and gotten worse, and we hardly bat an eye. That was just them answering quiz show style questions to get money to help with their economic situations. Now we put people through the ringer for the same. In 2003, Fox aired a show called Joe Millionaire. Do you remember this?
Oh, yes. I was just talking about it.
Yes. And this is where women competed against each other for the chance to date a man they thought was rich, only to reveal at the end that the man was actually broke. It was kind of a way to mock women that they portrayed as gold diggers, while denying the reality that due to patriarchy and systemic sexism, women have been taught for centuries their best bet at a good life is by marrying rich. Women today earn 83 cents for every $1 a man makes, and this rate is even lower for women of color. Hispanic women earn just 57 cents for every dollar earned by a white man, and black women earn just 64 cents. The wealth gap by gender is even worse. According to a 2017 report by Closing the Women's Wealth Gap, U.S. women own just 32 cents for every $1 that a man owns. And of course, that amount is also lower for black and Latino women, mere pennies to every dollar owned by white men and women. From 2003 to 2018, America's Next Top Model aired. Did you ever watch that?
No, I thought it was really cruel.
Yeah, it was messed up, right?
Yeah.
So basically, participants got a $40 a day stipend, and they were competing not only for the chance to win $100,000, but also for the promise of a successful modeling career afterwards. And they were made to do these really messed up contests where they'd have to stand in freezing cold water for hours at a time, or have their complete appearance changed in a way that didn't look good to them.
Oh, yeah. I saw this terrible TikTok about Tyra going off on one of the contestants, and the contestant was like, I'm a single mom, I'm struggling, I have to do this show for a better life for my kid. And I think she misunderstood one of the assignments because she was like she was like afraid of looking like stupid because like she didn't know something, and Tyra just went off on her, and it was so awful to watch, because you're like, this person is just trying to like have a job.
And the saddest part is that, like, in reality, winning that show will not give you a job. You get the $100,000 cash prize, but the show itself carries such a stigma that it makes contestants virtually unhireable in the modeling industry afterwards. The first winner of the show, Adrienne Curry, said, "We were led to believe daily that the winner would be instantly rich and a huge Revlon cover girl. But this was a lie. They were never going to have us as a model." Curry did some brief reality TV work after the show, but never found any work as a model. And as of 2022, she works as an Avon lady.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So from 2004 to 2005, Fox aired a show called The Swan.
Oh, this show is so fucked up.
Do you want to explain the premise of it?
Oh, basically, they give, quote unquote, like, I hate this. They give, like, ugly women.
Ugly ducklings.
Ugly ducklings. That's what they call them.
Yes.
Ugly ducklings, plastic surgery to turn them into swans. And they make them compete against each other to see who can go from the ugliest to the hottest.
Yes, so they give these women radical plastic surgery and then force them to compete in a beauty pageant at the end against each other. And, you know, this is kind of pitched as being one part, like, you can laugh at them because they're so vain and silly, these women, but another part, like, oh, heartwarming story of ugly person. But what, like, it doesn't actually take into consideration is that there are a lot of benefits in society that come with being considered conventionally attractive. And it's not shocking that some people would find value in trying to reap those benefits or be sad that they've been excluded or barred from certain things because of not meeting them.
Yeah, and like I saw one episode where it was like this woman, her husband, like, was divorcing her, and she was just like, I have to do this so I can, like, be hot, because now now my husband was my life, and now, like, what am I gonna do now? Like, right. To be like, wow. And to me, where my mind went, where it's like, oh, like people be like, oh, like, she needs to find love now, like, show him, she needs to get back at him. But I was just like, to me, this is about economics. Like, being married is, like, to me, an economic situation.
Especially if you, like, well, the show was in 2004 or 2005, you come from a slightly older background. It's like, women, we're like, definitely it's shoved in our faces that the best thing you could do is, like, meet a rich man or meet a nice man with a good job to take care of you. And being attractive plays into your economics too. Research shows that conventionally attractive people earn up to 15% more than their peers, and over 10% of that alone is due to bias in the hiring process, where attractive people are perceived as more capable. Additionally, though, physically attractive workers are more confident, and higher confidence increases your wages. Conventionally attractive workers also have increased social skills due to increased social opportunities in their youth, which I thought was really interesting. And that tends to also raise their wages when they interact with employers. Conventionally attractive people also get called back for job interviews more often, and conventionally attractive women have a better advantage when negotiating with men in the workplace. And of course, conventionally attractive people are more sought after as romantic partners, especially when it comes to women. 92% of male participants in one report wanted a potential partner to be attractive, compared to just 84% of women. So also in 2005, this one was the one that was most fucked up to me. Fox aired a show called Who's Your Daddy, which featured real women trying to find their biological fathers.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yes, and they offered cash prizes to men who could successfully deceive the women into thinking they were their fathers.
What?
Yes.
And that's like so fucking, like, I know people like throw this term around a lot. Like, that's so gaslighty.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible.
That's so fucked up. Like, that's fucking with someone's emotions.
Oh, yeah, and
like,
the
and
women don't even win the cash prizes. The men do. It's a contest for the men to earn money.
What?
Yes, the men who can successfully fool a woman into thinking that he is her biological father wins a prize.
Okay, and I thought The Swan was the most, well, actually, I think the most fucked up show, which you might get to, is The Biggest Loser. But we
I didn't do that one.
That one's so, do you remember that show?
I think I remember it was like, they tried to make people lose a bunch of weight, but then it was just like really exploitative and like traumatizing.
Super fat phobic, like just so fucked up.
Yeah.
And this woman basically just like bullies and tortures people. Like, it's like I had yeah, it's just like, I remember that show just being like, this is the most, like, you are watching people get tortured, and this is so fucked up and sad.
Yeah, that sounds really sad. In 2007, Bravo aired a show called Sheer Genius, which was a reality contest show for hairstylists, and they competed to win $100,000, which doesn't sound so bad, except hairdressers in the U.S. usually earn an average of between $13 to $18 an hour. So even if you go off the high estimate of $18 an hour, that's just $37,000 a year. And for reference, anyone earning less than $34,351 a year in the U.S. is considered poor. So this show targeted people who were just barely above that poor ranking and made them compete with their unpaid labor to try to earn $100,000. To try to win it, only one person could. Also that same year in 2007, a show launched called Nothing But the Truth, where contestants were hooked up to lie detector tests and asked invasive personal questions about their sex lives, romantic lives, deepest secrets, and relationships, all in front of their loved ones for a chance to win money. In 2008, the CW aired a show called Stylista, where contestants competed for an entry-level job at Elle magazine by being debased and humiliated by editor Anne Slowey. She threw her coat at somebody at the reception desk. She constantly critiqued the physical appearances of all of the contestants and just basically verbally abused them for the entire show. And that was just to win an entry-level job.
Oh my God. So basically, it's like the Devil Wears Prada reality show. And it's actually very funny because neither you nor I have ever watched it.
No, I've never seen it. But it was pitched as being The Apprentice meets The Devil Wears Prada.
Which is, like, really fucked up because I feel like for a lot of, like, fashion or, like, editorial stuff that has, like, a lot of, like, seemingly, like, glitz and aesthetic, those jobs don't pay very much.
No, they're really, really bad jobs. And an entry-level job would probably pay you minimum wage.
Yeah.
In 2009, the CW also ran something called 13 Fear is Real, which tortured contestants by leveraging their darkest fears against them. So if you were afraid of the dark or isolation, you might be left alone in the woods. If you were afraid of rats, you might be covered in rats. If you were afraid of being buried alive, they would bury you alive. One person was even put in a trash compactor, all for a chance to win $66,666. Not even that much money.
Honestly...
And the chance to win is the wildest part to me. It's like, you do all that for a chance you could get $66,000.
Because you know my huge fear. It's heights.
Yes.
And I've always been like, if someone wants to pay me, like, the number always fluctuates. Right now, I feel like it'd have to be $100,000
yes.
to skydive.
Yes.
Like, that would be like, before I even get on the plane, I get half. When I jump, it's the other half.
Yes.
Like, that's my minimum.
Yeah, yeah.
What would yours be?
I think that my biggest fear is getting stabbed. So if somebody was going to stab me in a non-lethal way,
oh, no.
I would need enough to retire. And the average American is supposed to have $2 million to retire. So I'd need $2 million to get stabbed.
Okay, so my number's way too low.
I think yours is really low. Yeah,
I think that I should go with, like, the price of, like a livable house in LA.
So I think it's $750,000 or $850,000.
I'm just gonna go $950,000.
I mean, you round it up to a cool milli. That's what they get on Survivor.
Just out there, anybody out there wants to pay me a cool mill to skydive, I will for a mill.
You got to put things out there. You're gonna manifest it.
Yeah,
I think so. In 2012, ABC also launched this show called The Glass House, where 14 contestants were put in a house, and similar to Big Brother, the American public voted on who got evicted, but the most likable person to the end just won $250,000. And then in 2013, the CW launched a show called Capture, where teams of 2 were left in the woods for an elaborate game of tag, where contestants were deprived of sleep, shelter, and food, and forced to survive in addition to playing this weird game, all for a chance to win $250,000. In 2018, True TV aired a game show called Paid Off, where contestants battled each other in a trivia challenge for a chance to get just a portion of their student loan debt paid off.
What the fuck?
Not even all of it, just a portion.
That's
the winner
fucked.
got some of it paid
That's
off.
That's fucked.
Yeah. And for some of these contestants, these contest shows actually were worthwhile if they won, because they did change their life. One person won $125,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire about 20 years ago, and they said they got to keep around $80,000 after taxes. With this money, they paid off their car, got a computer, and quit their full-time job to instead get a part-time job that they liked more and go to college. So now they work a job that they could only get with their college degree, and they say it never would have happened if they hadn't won that money on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
That makes me so sad.
I know, and it's like all they're wanting is just a good job and an education.
Like, okay, how many times in our lives would, like, in my life, if I would have just had, like, a car that didn't break down and a newer laptop? That's it.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, 25 grand?
Right.
Like a night, like, or even just like a car that didn't break down all the time. 10 grand.
$10,000 car.
$12,000.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who don't win, though, the experience is horrifying. One contestant on the show Total Wipeout said, I threw up and both of my legs seized up after I came off. 2 people went to the hospital. One guy dislocated a knee. One girl landed funnily and her throat closed off. One girl had a bruise that took up her entire leg. One of our 4 guys was ex-army, and when he came off, he said in full seriousness, I'd rather go back to Baghdad than ever do that again.
What the fuck?
And they didn't win anything. Despite this, though, game shows are really popular against, like, every age group from 18 to 64.
Oh my gosh. I have a hot take.
Oh, yeah.
The only reality show contest that should be allowed in my world would be the ones like The Masked Singers where only celebrities compete.
Yes, only rich people have to dance for us.
But they have to, like, make over a certain amount of money.
Yes. Yeah.
But then wait. Oh, I don't know.
But then they make more money for being on the show? No, they have to do it for free.
No, they get a special trophy that's, like, super special. Like, they just get, like, a trophy that's, like, you're the best ballroom dancer in the world.
Yeah, you want people to do things not out of economic necessity because then it's inherently exploitative.
No, you wanted them to do it for the trophy. They get a trophy.
Yes, they get glory and honor.
They get a medal and they get a handshake from their favorite person in the world.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that.
If the person agrees, it has to be a consensual handshake.
Consensual handshake. Yeah, I like that. Well, these like types of shows are so popular that now we have the Game Show Network. There's just all this.
Oh wait, my grandma watches it all the time, and they do the Family Feud, where they have to answer. They're like, "What does someone have in their pants?"
Oh yeah,
and people will be like, "A hand."
Yeah,
but then they'll try to say something like kind of naughty.
Yes, they're always vaguely raunchy.
Yeah.
Well, your grandma would be in line with 10 to 13% of Americans who watch the Game Show Network in 2018.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's very, very popular.
Whoa.
So in March of 2021, the Journal of Psychological Rehabilitation and Mental Health conducted a study on the correlation between game shows and mental health and actually found that people's mental health improved while watching the shows. Because the shows are interactive, people's minds are engaged, and it serves as a distraction from the anxieties and worries in their day-to-day life. And that makes sense to me. It's kind of like when playing the lottery. You're not actually going to win, but you enjoy imagining a life where you could. And even if you're not playing the contest shows on TV, you get to imagine that maybe one day you might. And you think about what you would do with all that money.
Oh my God, that's okay. I'm going to admit something. That's me and Jeopardy. Because my mom said that I was good at Jeopardy because I answered some of the questions right. And then I was like, wait, could I be on Jeopardy?
You could be on Jeopardy. I think you could.
I mean, I think that if it actually came down to it, I would not be good at Jeopardy because you got to do like the test and all the stuff, and I don't think I want to be on TV because I would have a nervous breakdown.
Well, it's very stressful for so many people, which makes sense. But like the TV networks, they're all too eager to assist in the fantasy. Both our fantasy as the viewer that one day this could be us and these are people just like us, and the fantasy of the contestants, that they could be the lucky winner. And contest shows are usually inexpensive to make and have really simple formats. So they tend to be popular with network executives too. Mark Darnell, who was the head of unscripted and alternative television at Warner Brothers, when talking about game shows, said, they're easy to do and cheap to produce. So every country, no matter how poor, can afford to produce them. Which, I don't know, it was kind of like weird TV imperialism. He brought up the poverty. But basically, they're prevalent all over the world. And it's gotten to the point now that game shows themselves don't even have to offer a cash prize. Just the exposure alone can translate into massive social media followings for participants, which then, if they play their cards right, they can parlay into brand deals. So Kendall Ray Knight, for example, was a contestant on season 4 of Love Island. She was only there for 6 days out of the 8-week season before getting kicked off. But she still amassed 943,000 followers on Instagram and got a deal to help promote a clothing line out of it.
Oh, wow.
Even though she didn't get paid to be on the show. And I actually started watching The Bachelor after being shocked to learn that contestants on the show do not get paid for their participation. While the featured bachelor or bachelorette can earn over $100,000 per season, the people competing for their love get nothing. And I remember reading that and be like, wait, they just get that guy?
Wait, like not even like a per diem?
I'm sure. Oh, the food is all provided on set. But they're trapped there, and they don't have social media, and so it's not like they can go anywhere and use a per diem.
Yeah, but how are you going to work?
Well, about that. So these 30 contestants who are competing for the affection of the bachelor, bachelorette, they usually go into massive amounts of debt just to be on the show. They have to pay for their grooming, of course, hair and nails and makeup, which can be super expensive. But they also buy their own wardrobes outright, and they have to assume they'll be there for the duration of the show, even if they get sent home the first day, meaning they pack super heavy. One contestant, Olivia Caridi, spent $40,000 on her wardrobe alone because they want you to have evening gowns and really high-end looking outfits for a lot of these scenes that you pay for. Another contestant, Jillian Harris, had to remortgage her house to go on the show.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and those with jobs need to be gone for up to 6 weeks for filming, meaning if your job won't allow for a 6-week leave of absence, you need to quit your job. And many people do. And once you quit your job, it actually can be really hard for you to get a new job when you return back to society from the show. One contestant said, I didn't understand the magnitude of the show and how hard it is to get a real job right after. Everyone knows who you are, and employers see it as a distraction.
Yeah, that's so fucked.
Right. So the best you could hope for is to make such a splash on The Bachelor, but that you don't win. Then you get invited onto this other show in the franchise called Bachelor in Paradise. And there, the participants are paid because they have a proven track record of being popular with audiences on whatever show they came from. But they only make between $7,000 to $15,000. So that's not like a full-time job. And you only get that if you lose The Bachelor or The Bachelorette and lose in a spectacular way that makes audiences want to see more of you.
Oof.
So in the end, these shows capture kind of the desperation of the public and often encapsulate the true unspoken nature of the American dream, which is just looking for a Hail Mary to save you from a life of endless poverty and financial stress. But true to the American dream, the efforts contestants make on these shows to do all of these things with the hope of winning something and then just earn nothing, it instead allows a TV executive to make a hefty paycheck off of their back. So it really is just the embodiment of labor exploitation. These contestants go on these shows and they get humiliated and degraded and dehumanized and come away with nothing, while the people who put on the shows make huge 6- and 7-figure salaries. And the few that do win, they're exemplified and shown to us as though it makes it all okay because, hey, anything is possible. You too could transcend your economic circumstances if you're the best. It's like a microcosm for capitalism on the whole, and it's obscene and tacky and cruel, but it's just flashy enough that we can't look away. So, Kenna, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's quite telling that this goes along with our, notion in society that if you have enough grit and meritocracy, you too can do it. Also, you don't need a social safety net. You can win the lottery or just work hard enough.
Or go on Jeopardy.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought of, because there was such an explosion in reality TV in I think the mid-aughts, kind of around the recession, that had to do with a writer's strike.
Oh, I remember the writer's strike.
Yes. So Hollywood is very unionized.
Right.
It's very unionized. There was a writer's strike around the same time. So what happened is that instead of all these writers went on strike for scripted shows, so what doesn't need a script? Reality TV.
I remember this. It's true. Yeah.
So it does have a lot to do with labor and stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, when you were talking about The Bachelor, they have to do their own makeup, get their own wardrobe. I'm okay, normally on a TV show, you would have someone doing all the wardrobes, sourcing all that stuff, getting paid to dress all the people on the show, someone doing all their makeup, getting paid a big daily rate to do that. I'm just wow, they're really screwing over so many people who could have jobs from this show. To me, it's just well, the people should get paid for all the days that they could be on the show.
Yeah.
And like, if we're going to do it in like a fair way, like get paid for all the show. And, you know, honestly, I feel like it should be like, if you can't find a job after this, like you could like get compensation for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty gnarly. I think like sometimes you see these shows in your industry, and then when you see it happening in your industry, you see faster how exploitative it is. Like, what was the fashion show?
America's
with Tim Gunn.
Oh, what was that show?
I can't believe I can't remember what it's called.
What was it? And I had Heidi Klum.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that show?
I can't remember. I can't believe I can't remember.
Oh my.
Project Runway.
Project Runway.
Yeah. So like on Project Runway, for example, the first designer, Christian Siriano, he managed to make like his own line and get pretty successful. But after that, nobody did. And when that's your industry and you look at that, you're like, none of these skills translate to actually having a clothing line in the real world or running a clothing business in the real world. Like I remember they brought on this one designer who made all her own clothes and she would spit on the fabric to market. And I'm like, that's fine if you're sewing for yourself and you just spit on your clothes to mark your cut line. But like, you're never going to get hired in a corporate setting to do that. And it's not scalable enough for you to run your own clothing line like that. Anything other than like one of a kind pieces that you just like make and sell as they are. And this show is not going to help you with that. Like, it's just not. And if anything, the show, you like, say you have, for example, your own small business with like an Etsy or something where you sew and sell your one of a kind pieces, the show could significantly damage your reputation to the extent that you're getting harassed online. And a lot of these Bachelor contestants in particular get harassed online a lot. And it's like, not only will this not help launch your career, it could damage your reputation to the extent that you can't exist on the internet anymore. And if you're working for yourself and doing these small one of a kind things, like, and that's what your skill set is, you need the internet to market your wares. And like it takes it sometimes being a show in your industry for you to be like, damn, this is fucked. Like, nobody's going to take you seriously after being on the show, but people don't know it. They're preyed upon.
Yeah, it's so exploitative. And it, to me, it just really shows like, just like the different, like, just like how economically depressed our society is. And like, I feel like the media does not capture just like the normal everyday person who like needs that extra, you know, money for just stuff that like should be provided, like student loans, healthcare,
right?
Like housing. Like, you're a single parent, you need to pay for childcare,
right? Like,
all this stuff is interconnected to the social safety net, which we do not have here. Like, we have the bare, like, I wouldn't even say, like, I mean, somewhat bare bones, you know?
Right.
People always say, like, well, if no one's going to turn you away at the hospital.
But that's not for preventative care, and that's not for regular care. That's only for acute care. And
that's only why, if you're, like, have a heart attack or in a car crash.
Right. So that's why our, like, premature death rates, or, like, our death rates that, like, didn't need to happen, basically, the preventable death rates, that's one. The reason why our preventable death rates are so much higher than comparable countries is because we're the only comparable nation that doesn't have universal health care, and universal health care assesses preventative care, regular care, and acute care, whereas we only assess acute care, and preventative care helps make all of those acute care situations not even need to happen. So that's why our death rates are so much higher. So it's true, we do have this really bare bones structure. It's like, oh, you lose your job, well, you get this really meager pittance that maybe can pay your rent, and that's it for 6 months while you look for a new job. I mean, obviously not during the recession and during the pandemic. They did like a boosted unemployment, but I've been on unemployment for normal times in my life too, in between jobs, and it's not enough for you to live off of. You know, we have these very, very scant structures in place to support people. But I just think, like, if someone told you, like, wow, in that country, people have to drink blended rats for a chance to win $50,000 to pay off debt that they owe for going to school, would you be like, that's cool, that makes sense, that's normal?
That sounds like the fucking Hunger Games.
Right, or it sounds like Squid Games.
Squid Games, yeah. That is like honestly, I'm surprised we didn't talk about that sooner.
Yeah, well, and also because it's like, it's not death in a lot of cases, but actually there is a really high correlation for people who are on reality television and premature deaths related to overdoses or like self-harm. And there is a high correlation because the media attention will ruin your life. And these people are getting celebrity level media exposure. Like, if you're on The Bachelor, millions of people watch that, but you're not getting compensated at a celebrity level and you don't have a PR team to deal with that. So, like, one thing that happened on Bachelor is a lot of Black women who appeared on the show were inundated with racist messages on their social media. Well, they weren't paid to be there. They don't have enough money to hire a PR team to handle it. So they have to filter through all of this racism themselves. And it's not at a small level, right? It's millions of people who consume this show. And I just think about like, okay, I have around 1 million followers on the internet, and I get really emotionally exhausted from it all the time. I also don't make an income from my internet presence, and it's a lot to deal with. But I also don't have to deal with fatphobic comments. I don't have to deal with racist comments. And like, that's just an exposure to 1 million people who are there just for what I provide on the internet. These people are hitting a huge audience base beyond 1 million people all over the country. People who maybe share their same interests, maybe don't, maybe know where they're coming from, maybe have no idea. And it just opens the door for so much harassment. It's just really difficult to have a normal life after that. And I don't think we think about that enough, how much these shows have the potential to, save your life, change your life. You win a big sum of money that can turn it around or completely ruin you.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know how there's like the curse of the lottery?
Yes.
This seems kind of like the curse of the lottery, where like lottery winners are just like, winning the lottery ruined my life because, you know, I overspent, like my wife left me, my kids hated me after that, like people came out of the woodwork to, you know,
yes.
Where it's just like, I just want to live in a society where the idea of winning the lottery is just like very confusing because you already have everything that you need. And like also with like, yeah, and you don't need to go on reality TV shows, and you would never think of harassing someone because they were like on an internet show, because you most likely have physical and mental health care.
Yeah, you have things to do with your time. And another thing too is like the idea of trolling, like how that really does have like a psychological impact on people who appear on these shows. Like trolling is like the psychology of like an internet troll. It's tied to loneliness.
Yeah, and I mean, we could probably do an entire episode.
That would be a good episode, just the troll. The idea of the troll as an episode. I'm going to put that actually on our episode notes list.
Yeah, like, it's just like, but this, like, it's also like, you know, just a larger society. I don't know if you want to call it like culture or just in the air of just like, also with these reality TV shows where it's kind of like, well, if something doesn't happen to you, even if it's luck, like, you know, there's something wrong with you. Like, oh, like you are in the situation where you need a car. Well, what's wrong with you? But then you get lucky and win a game show. Like, oh, see, things are great.
Right. And that's true. That's like the same thing that happens in like capitalism on the day to day, where we're shown like Jeff Bezos and Beyonce and we're like, look, anybody can make it. You can be rich and famous. And then it's like, well, no, that just happened to them. Not everybody can do that by like statistical fact. There's no way we could all be Jeff Bezos and Beyonce.
Yeah. And it's like luck. But then people get on this thing where it's just like, well, I'm going to be the lucky one because I'm better.
Yeah.
Or because we feel this need to be better because that's the only, it's like, it's almost like, currency. You know what I mean? Like it's,
yeah, it is. It's really depressing. Yeah, but I am really glad that, one of our listeners, Stella Fox Smith, brought this up too, because this is a thing I've thought about before while watching these shows. Like, Jesus Christ, just give them the money so their kid can get the cancer treatment. What the fuck? And I was happy to know that other people also were thinking about this, and it wasn't just like a weird idea that lived in the back of my brain. I also wanted to point out, if anybody else, again, wants to be able to suggest episode topics to us, you can do so on our Patreon. It's $2 a month. And it's patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. Kenna, do you have any final thoughts before we close out this episode?
Honestly, I just do a YouTube search of Kid Nation.
Yes, watch Kid Nation. Pay the reality TV show contestants for their labors. Reality TV show contestant labor uprising against TV executives.
Yes.
That's a good one.
They should unionize. Reality TV stars should unionize.
And if Vanna White had her job but also got to write really simple Q&As for the new edition of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that would be my job. I would like that job.
Oh, I want that for you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much again for listening to us. If you would like to support us, you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. And for $2 a month, you can access bonus content. You can leave us messages, including show ideas, or just ask us questions, which we may answer on a bonus episode or maybe even regular. But if not, that is totally cool. We love that you're here, and thank you.